Hello, hi everybody. We are about to run and start a workshop courtesy of KnowBe4, and Javad in a minute will tell you who KnowBe4 are. They have kindly given £10,000 to do a cybersecurity awareness video challenge. So this is for university students, and we'll take you through in a minute, explain everything about what we're all about. We're going to introduce you to the judges, these academics, and of course, someone from KnowBe4, so some of the industry experts. We shall also explain the criteria of what we're hoping for as students. So what you need to be putting together to make your videos work as part of this kind of competition challenge. We'll give you some tips. So how you make it accessible to all sorts of different people, how you go about securing your IP. And actually, Lisa, who's an expert on blockchain tech, will also explain some of blockchain stuff. And then we will take you through kind of why cybersecurity awareness training is so important. Absolutely important to without cybersecurity awareness training, many more phishing attacks would happen. And it's a really big issue. So we're looking to you creative students to somehow come up with some really creative, interesting, innovative videos, and we'll tell you this, about 3 minutes long. So we'll give you the tips and we'll tell you all about it. And then at the end of it, there's loads of time for you guys to ask the panel all sorts of questions, which hopefully we will be able to answer, which is why it's called a Q&A. So the first prize is £5,000. The second one, and I think each team, there'll be up to 3 people. It could just be one of you, but it could be up to 3 people in that team. So if one person does a brilliant video, you're going to win £5,000. So this is worth doing. Then the second prize is £3,000, and the third prize is £2,000. So I think each time that's great, and we'll try and promote the video as well for you. So without any ado, let me introduce you to the judges. Actually, Dr. Karen Reynolds isn't on the call at the moment, but Professor Daniel Dresner is. Danny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Danny Dresner. I'm a professor of cybersecurity at the University of Manchester, where I've been there since 2004, which explains the hair loss.
Oh, that's it. Okay, fabulous. And Professor Lisa Short, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
I can. Hi, everyone. I'm Professor Lisa Short, and I'm a professor also, just like Danny, but I'm not at Manchester. And I am Australian, but I sit on a number of the cybersecurity councils around the world, and I'm the Chief Research Officer for one of the big global organisations for cyber research, and very much engaged in creating a digitally safer world. And certainly my focus is SMEs. So that's a little bit about me as well.
Thank you. And Professor Alison Wakefield, hello.
Hello. So I think that Danny's introduction was far too modest. He's a legend in the field. I'm newer to cybersecurity, and as you can see, I come from a slightly different, or quite considerably different, academic background, and that's through criminology, and then widening my interest to security, and then being drawn into cyber, which so many of us are these days, because society is becoming more digitalized, and the distinction between the physical world and the virtual world is becoming more and more blurred. So if there are any criminology students among you, I can be a port of call. Alternatively, you might like to consider students in criminology in security studies, which is a part of international relations, because there are so many different perspectives on cybersecurity. I also teach psychology students, and that's becoming a growing area of interest. So my networks have been more of the traditional physical security side. I sit on a body called the National Resilience Commission now, which is bringing people together from different disciplines and kind of looking at how the resilience of the UK to all kinds of threat, from pandemic to cyber attack, how we can be better prepared collectively for those kind of issues. So I hope I've sort of started to illustrate how broad cybersecurity actually is.
Well, exactly, which is why we're trying to attract students, not just in cybersecurity to do this, but to work with other students in other disciplines, so they can bring their perspective into it as well. So that's useful. Thank you. And then Ian Murphy isn't on the call at the moment, but if anybody wants to really see how amazing cybersecurity awareness videos are done, Ian is so funny. He's brilliant. You could look at his LinkedIn. He runs a company called CyberOff. And actually the KnowBe4 videos are amazing as well. In fact, they have a feature film, believe it or not, coming out called Inside Man, I think in March. When is it, Javad?
Yeah, it's a series.
It's a series. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like a proper feature film. You look at it, it's like a film though. It's as good as any film that's ever been done. I think it's always amazing. And Javad, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Javad Malik. Unlike my learned colleagues here, I am not a doctor or a professor, but I have been working in cybersecurity. Well, it was known as IT security when I started, since about 99. So yeah, I started when I was 10 years old, if you're trying to do the maths. So yeah, I worked in the industry my entire career. It was my first job. And so I've seen it develop and grow and become a massive field and in its own right. And one thing that has kept me here is like, it's really interesting because the challenges keep changing. But the other thing that we keep seeing, which is, I suppose, underpins a lot of what we're here for today, is that while technology has gotten really good, and compared to like 20 years ago, where you could pretty much waltz into any website and at the very least deface it, nowadays that's a lot harder. So what we see criminals doing is going after that human at the end of the keyboard directly. So that's why we think educating people, making them more aware, because we put so much value in our digital lives nowadays. Protecting ourselves is such a big thing. So that's what KnowBe4 does. KnowBe4 is company mission is to help people make better risk decisions. We're not here to say do this or don't do this, but here's what could happen. You're all smart people, and I think one thing that career professionals like myself we often overlook is that we have the curse of knowledge, because we see security threats day in, day out. We think everyone should know about these, but they don't. So, finding new voices, fresh voices and fresh angles into how to educate the masses about this is absolutely key. And that's why we're so happy to be supporting this initiative, and hopefully getting a whole bunch of you involved in this as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And finally, I'm Ivona Skenzi, and I have run Skenzi PR, which is a PR agency just in cybersecurity. And what we've done for almost 30 years now is tell stories, not porcupine stories, but we tell stories about, we're storytellers about cybersecurity. So companies come to us and we try and tell the biggest story to the press and media. And which is why we're so interested to be involved in this as well, because it's so key to be able to tell a story in pictures and in a video. So that's why we're kind of involved. And unfortunately, because Dr. Karen Reynolds isn't here, she's a fabulous lecturer, and she's at the University of Strathclyde running the computer science department there, doing cybercrime and stuff like that. So if none of you have met her on this call, go and seek her out, because she's actually a fabulous lady, and runs many. She's been around quite a while, teaching all sorts of courses. So shall we dive in now? Shall we tell you what we're actually looking for, so that we can get stuck in and try and get you guys kind of ramped up to want to do it. I don't know, Lisa, do you want to, we've done a couple of slides here that will be useful to go through, and then we'll finish with the Q&A, and then we can have a chat with all of you if anyone wants to put any questions to us. Over to you, Lisa.
Absolutely. Well, I guess the main thing that we're looking for here is to connect together three things. We want to connect together, and we call them the 3 C's really: communications, creativity, and cybersecurity. And really that's what we're looking for, I suppose, in many ways. That's the key overarching theme, in the sense that We're looking for students to connect their communication skills, regardless of what faculty or what area of study that they are studying in, to bring out their creativity, to think about some of the challenges that we have for cybersecurity awareness, and to think about how we can create a digitally safer world. And that's really key to us, is to connect those three things together. So overarching, they're the three big things: communications, creativity, and cybersecurity, because we want a different message to what's being delivered out there currently. And that means you have to think a little bit harder and work together to try and come up with a very different message that's going to get across some of the themes, and I'll go through the themes in a moment, and create a different story that resonates with people in a different way, because we know there's certain parts of the industry that aren't hearing the message that we're delivering in terms of cybersecurity, or the message is not being delivered in a way that they actually understand it. So for us, it's to address via a video using one of the themes from Cybersecurity Awareness Month, using those three key areas: cybersecurity, creativity, and cybersecurity. We are particularly looking for how you can help small to medium enterprises, because we know that their malicious attack rate is growing at over 400% per annum, and therefore they're at a critical industry risk. And of course, they also happen to be the entry point in many ways to some of the bigger corporate challenges that we have. So in the supply chain, a lot of the smaller to medium enterprise businesses are the ones that are actually functionally the way in, if you like. It's a bit like the small fish and the big shark type food chain. That's how they're getting into some of the corporates, through that supply chain and that value chain. So it's really important we address this, and we do know that the message is not getting through to them in a very, very clear way. So our themes are, there is 4 basic themes: enabling multi-factor authentication. So how can we do that in a fun and a different and a creative way? So to encourage those businesses to do that and understand that, and everybody to participate in that. Using strong passwords and a password manager. I mean, we all get told that we have to change our passwords, but we don't. And so I think that's a really strong key message. Updating software and recognising and reporting phishing. And if you really look at those 4 things, each of those 4 things is actually a very people-orientated challenge, really, because each of those 4 things is not actually about technology. It's about the things that we do with the technology. So I think that makes this exercise a really valuable one, because we're asking you to deliver us something creatively about how people actually enter and use technology, and want to make, how we can do it safer and en masse as well. And I guess that's another important theme here, is that the video is designed to deliver en masse to a large volume of businesses and a large volume of people. And so we really want it to sort of be that, wow factor, I suppose, as to something different than what's out there. So that means you've also got to go and look for in the industry and go and search out what are the messages being delivered. Because if you're going to deliver a message, we want it to be different. So you need to know what the current message is and why maybe it's not working. So there's a bit of a research element in this as well. So what's going to be assessed? The video itself, in terms of its quality and its execution, it's about approximately no more than 3 minutes long, because people's attention spans won't last any longer than that. It's also the write-up. And in other words, the write-up is the collaboration, how you have worked together as a team, but also what have you learned from each other? And most importantly, who have you gone and engaged with? Have you gone and asked the customer that's going to receive the message, what is it they're not hearing? What is it they're missing? What is it they don't understand? What do they want to know? It also means you're going to have to interpret and go and talk to more than one person and get a feeling for how you might be able to creatively get that message across to those individuals. So you're really going to have to sort of sink in and communicate really well with the end consumer. We want to know what you've done well, what you haven't done well, how you've organised it, who you've engaged with, all of the write-up and the research that's gone into this proposal. That's really important to us as well. And also, based on your industry, the interviews that you have, what are the lessons that you've actually learned from the experience and how they can be applied to industry on a broader scale? And that's really important to us as well, because this is a learning exercise. What we're saying is that there needs to be greater collaboration between various sectors in the industry. And I think by engaging with the end consumer who is going to receive the message, and remember, there will also be people there of varying different ages. So you might have younger people, older people, digital natives, non-digital natives, people in regional areas, people in city areas. So you need to think about who your focus is going to be and what that message is going to be. And potentially, as I said, why the message is not reaching them currently as it stands now. We want to know, things like how you think employees and wider audiences care about cyber issues. So you're going to have to tap into that, the why. It's not just the what, it's the why. I think that's important as well. So that's sort of some of the brief things that we're looking for. And I think if we sort of hand it over to some of the other judges, I know for me personally, I am going to say that I'm very, very much so focused on the small to medium enterprises. And I think also those who are not digitally native and those who are digital natives. I think they're three key elements. And I also think there's probably a difference between those who may be in regional areas as opposed to those who are in city areas, because often people don't realise that just because you're in a regional area doesn't make you any less exposed in a digital world. So I think there's some sort of key things there. So what I'd be looking for is to ensure that students, although they may well be positioned in a city area if they're attending university, remember that the digital world is borderless, to go out and seek a broad audience to get your feedback from. So I might leave that and hand it over to the other judges.
All right. So Danny, do you want to, at this point, tell us what you think? It would be lovely to have your insight into kind of the do's, the don'ts, and what your overview is, because I know that you've got some thoughts on this. Did you want to maybe share some slides, Danny?
Yes, yeah. So if someone would like to legally give me control of the screen, I will switch onto mine. Make sure I don't share anything that I shouldn't be. There we go. Fantastic. I think it's actually working. So firstly, welcome at least virtually to Manchester, the home of the Digital Security Hub. We've got a great place. This is going to be one of the places where we hopefully will be displaying some of the work that you do. It's a really exciting building. We're on the floor below at GCHQ. No, it's okay. I am allowed. Oh, I see. Sorry. It wasn't that I'm not allowed to tell you that we share the building with GCHQ. Apparently, it's the fact that we're over the slug and lettuce on the ground floor, which is more important. So it'll be a great place to visit, and we'd look forward to welcoming you there. I really want to tell you about this because sometimes it seems I'm the only person who cares about security. You could say that nobody really understands me. I mean, when it comes to security problems, and this is really, really what we don't want to see in this kind of awareness video, is that when you have a problem, it's all down to blame. So we're not looking to have encouragement for people to cover their tracks. We want people to be open about security, know what they're going to do, but also report where they see the risks, because it's the people who are out there using this technology who really understand what the problems are. You'll probably have heard in the news some years ago, not that long ago, that there was this WannaCry ransomware which locked up parts of the NHS. And what were people doing? They were shouting at people saying, oh, they shouldn't have clicked on it, it's all their fault. And then they went through all of this kind of blame nonsense, hardly even thinking about the fact that there were some criminals who had done some bad things, but there was so much people could have done to protect themselves and know how to cope and react when a bad thing happens. And that's really important, because when it comes down to it, so much of the stuff that's out there, which is why we're asking you to do something much more creative, is telling people, well, we want you to get on with your work and you've got to click on lots of things and fill in lots of forms. Oh, but actually, we wanted to click and don't click at the same time. Maybe that's what they mean by quantum computing. Who knows? And just look at the way organizations are arranged. Here you come into work, you're probably not being paid a great deal, but you're expected to protect billions of pounds of information assets, where actually really what you're worrying about is leaving on time, getting home to make the kids their tea, pick them up from school, and probably what they like all good people. You just want to go to the pub of an evening. So you've got to get the balance right between what people should be doing, what the technology should be doing, and who they need to talk to make sure that you get the balance right. Because all of this technology is out there. And what do we really want? I mean, essentially, we're all just looking for three things. We want it to run and do stuff. We want it to be cheap and fast and resilient. The bad news is you can only choose two. Well, Freddie Mercury made a song out. Oh, it wasn't Freddie Mercury. It was Meatloaf. There we go. Okay. Showing my age there.
Both of which aren't around anymore.
Oh, that's a shame. But and of course, it's not that easy. It's quite complex, isn't it? So how do you get this message over? Probably not like this. You've got to tell people where they need to end up and tell them in the most easy way so that they can at least start their journey, do some basics, some essentials, make themselves as safe as possible, and hopefully make them that little bit more interested so that they'll continue. Because the technology gets new things come out. Think of how the phone that you had a couple of years ago, all of the features that it didn't have that you've got on the phone that you've got now, how you need to be safer. So put it into context, help people to understand what security means to them and how it relates to them. Because if they understand what it relates to them and their friends and their family, they'll get a much better picture of the challenges their organization and their workplace face, suffer. Because there's no magic doorway. People do not walk in from the street into their place of work and become a new cyber secure human being. They know that there are things that they need to do before they can go home to get their wage check at the end of the month. They need to understand. They need to empathize. They need to know that it's worthwhile and that they're part of a bigger picture as well. So when there is a problem, they know who to call. Thank you.
Fabulous. Goodness, that was a fantastic presentation.
Too good, Danny.
You get my vote, so you're going to put that into
Yeah. Does he get the £10,000 now?
Exactly. I'll give you my £10,000.
That was a meta. You see, that was a meta video, wasn't it? That was a video about making videos.
That was very good.
Am I still allowed to say meta?
I don't know, but you inspired me. Thank you. So what we're looking, and by the way, hello, Karen. I think I just saw you join. So I'm not sure if anybody else can see her. She's down there. We would just, I don't know. You can introduce yourself maybe afterwards, but I did introduce you. So it's lovely that you've joined us. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I got stuck on a train.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's fabulous that you're here. So what are we looking for, folks? Who wants to take us through this slide? Lisa, do you want to carry on and take us through? And you did actually mention a lot of this already.
Yeah, I can certainly. We're looking for, certainly these are some of the rules. So we're looking for teams that are limited to no more than 4 people. Now, of course, we'll be looking for very diverse teams too. So because we want to get diverse viewpoints as well. So we don't want to see all 4 blokes and all 4 girls. We want to see all nicely balanced, diverse teams. So we get good diversity of thought and inclusion. Your video can be no more than 3 minutes long maximum, and address one of the themes as we've outlined from the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So one of those themes. So it's a very clear message and we can align it very clearly to one of those, because that's always really nice for us to see we can measure some results out of this as well. Though it is primarily a UK focused program, because obviously the challenges are around Cybersecurity Awareness Month for the UK, it is open to students internationally, and we do encourage international collaboration as well. So it might be students from here and might be another student from somewhere else. So that's fine too, and we can do remote work and so forth. But again, no more than 4 in a team. The deadlines for the submissions are February 2023, so the end of February this year. So you've got just about approximately a month to get your work completed. And I guess just the criteria, a video of 3 months when you submit. These are the things that you must submit. The video of 3 minutes. I'm assuming that we haven't got a format for that there, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be an MP4 or something like that. I'm assuming we didn't think about that, but in a broadly form, but I'm assuming probably an MP4 or something like that would be the thing, but we can double check on that, but I'm assuming probably an MP4. Certainly the knowledge on the subject and the research that you've done, those criteria that we talked about before. We also want to make sure that you do use a sense of humour. You do show emotion, innovation and creativity. So don't reuse somebody else's, stale ideas. We really want you to create something yourself. You might really go into the metaverse type environment where, as Danny just said, or, dress up or do whatever, or play role, whatever you want to do. It's just open to you as to what you want to do. Accessibility. I think this is a really key one. It needs to be able to, every single person needs to be able to engage with your content. So remember, it has to be age appropriate. It needs to make sure that it expands across your target audience. And of course, obviously is appropriate to show. We want you to deliver to us how you've engaged with industry, how you've engaged in that consultation process and those interviews. We want to see some evidence of that, how you've collaborated as a team, how you've met some of the challenges you've experienced, and how you've actually valued all the input from the team and also from the people that you've engaged with. I think that's important as well. And certainly how that has influenced your video and framed the topic and the conversation. And I guess probably ultimately, I would probably add to that, what you think the video is going to change. What sort of behaviour is it that you think is going to change? I think that's probably a really important thing too, to try and articulate to us what you saw as one of the key challenges and why your video will overcome that. So if you can articulate that to us very well. And also shelf life, which is really important. Can your video stand the test of time? Because these challenges have been going on for a long period of time. We don't want this to be a sort of 1 month wonder, very topical type video. We want it to last a series, a period of time. And we want the winner potentially to engage obviously with industry, and for this to be like a year-long or several year-long project, and to be the wow that everybody remembers in terms of the message that you deliver. So I think there's some of the things that we're looking for when you deliver us the project. Anybody else think of anything else?
We can always extend the deadline. We may have to do that if we need to. So, but we're going to try and get everyone to the end of February and try and get as many as we can by the end of February. Cool. Do we want to? I'm actually, you're doing it so beautifully, Lisa. Do you want to talk about the tips and take us through this whole your area?
Okay.
It's an actual fact.
Yeah, you can buy the next wine. You can buy the next wine at the next event. That's fine. That's cool. I'll do that.
I need so much wine anyway, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
so
good.
protecting your IP is
I think one of the things that we recognise as judges, which is really key and important in this, is that often students' intellectual property and the developing of a video such as this, that could have a very broad, widespread impact. We don't want to see your IP used in the wrong way or in an inappropriate way. We want to see, first of all, that it's protected. And for that we are going to register your IP and anchor it to a blockchain. And ultimately, the likelihood is that we'll actually convert your MP3, or 4, or whatever the format is. We'll probably convert it actually to a non-fungible token, because your video is going to be a piece of unique, singular code ultimately, or an asset. And so we'll convert that nicely through technology to be an NFT, and that IP will be anchored to a blockchain and protected forever, and it will always be yours. So if this video turns out to be absolutely super amazing, and KnowBe4, for example, want to use it for the next 10 years, then we'll make sure that any of the participants in that are commercially looked after for their intellectual property, etc. So it's very important to us that learners and students also start to respect that technology and security is not just about cybersecurity. It is about protection of intellectual property and valuing assets and turning our world into a commercially and digitally safe environment. So it's very, very important to us to do that. And of course, that means you'll be able to engage with some amazing technology people to do that as well. And that's not something you would normally be privy to and get a chance to. So that's really, really important for us. Again, I think accessibility is very key to us. And it's not just about accessibility in terms of who's going to see it, it's how they're going to see it. So we've got to remember that most people, use their devices. So it has to be mobile accessible, not just web accessible. It needs to be in a format that where we could potentially just show it on a screen as somebody's, walking into a building. It might be worth thinking about too that there might be particular images from your video that we might want to snapshot and turn into posters and things. So just to think about some of the value add that you might be able to build into your video as well, so that can be used for still images where we can't always put moving images. So I think that's important. But just think about accessibility. I would probably hazard a guess to say we also need to think about language, because English may not be the first language of everybody that's going to see this. So if you are going to use a lot of spoken and written word, it might be mindful to think about that, how you can make that video accessible, if in fact it can be translated easily with subtitles in different languages perhaps, and keep the written messaging to a minimum, and really try and keep that message of inclusiveness in terms of your design around your video. Working together, communication is key. That's one of the things that's key in this. We've also identified in the cyber world and in digital security and cyber security that one of the things that is missing is communication and collaboration between businesses, but also between people and between vendors and between supply chain and so forth. So I think communication is key, and we want to see that you've actually evidenced that in this project. Humour, we've said that. Humour and emotion make messages stick. So do stories. People like to hear them. They like to remember those things. So I think that is really important. And if you do go and look at, some of the videos and things that we've mentioned in the earlier part of some of the judges here, go and look at some of that messaging there. You can see some of the stuff that Danny does, and it's always a bit of humour. You always remember that. So I think that really is important.
So on that point, Javad, aren't any of KnowBe4's funny little videos available to people? Or do you have to be a KnowBe4 customer? Can you get hold of them on YouTube or anything like that?
So there is some stuff that's available, but I don't think any of the really good stuff is freely available.
So interesting. Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah,
we might be able to get hold of some. I can find out. But otherwise, like you said in the beginning, like Ian Murphy has got some really good stuff out there. Actually, if you go even on TikTok, that's a really good place to see. Like, people within 30 seconds can tell a really good story about something, and sometimes it's just with a few words. And it's one of those things where, like, you could probably remember a funny line from a movie and recite it verbatim that you saw 3 years ago, but you probably can't remember what your lecturer told you in class just this morning. So and that's the importance. That's no disrespect to any of the lecturers, but it's just to show that when you're immersed in a story and something is humorous or engaging, I suppose, that's where people remember it. So think about the engagement factor. Is it something that really people can relate to? I think that's a key factor.
And in actual fact, for those people that don't know Javad Malik, he makes the funniest videos ever. And he has, in his lifetime, I think probably hands down, done the funniest videos ever. So if you want to have a look at his videos, you can tell everybody your website to go and find your very funny videos.
So you can go to my website, javadmalik.com, which will have all the links to my YouTube channel, my TikTok channel, and what have you. So thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. And I agree. I think relevancy and being able to connect. I mean, I can tell you some funny stories. I think this is an important thing, a funny story. I mean, I've got elderly parents, and my mother will forward me an email that she's opened that she thought was dodgy, so she thought she'd forward it to me, and just check on it. That's after she's opened it and checked that it is dodgy, and then she sends it to me and says, "Can you sort this out?" Or she's had a phone call from somebody and she's handed them all my details because she hasn't got any online details. So, I think you can make they might sound like funny little dittos, but they're really real. That's how these things happen. This is how easy it happens. And I think that's an important message, that sometimes it's the simple things that people miss. And these are, they're very people orientated themes. So I guess, you know, the creativity is about looking at, you know, we're still looking at the same messaging. We're still looking at passwords, 2FA, phishing exercises and so forth. And yet the message is still not getting through. So there's something we're missing. The message is not getting through to the end users, you know. It may be, and I know, you know, Karen, who's on the call now, we've had this discussion many times. They're very young and they're very old. You know, one lot is digitally native, but the other lot are not. But they're very highly exposed to some of the issues that we've got here. So again, it might be that you choose one of those areas and look at, you know, what those challenges might be, and how you might be able to creatively tell a funny story about that. Because again, you know, they're often the ways that you know, malware is deposited on computers, because they're the least knowledgeable. You know, my mother, as I said, will look at an email, and if it's got a bank logo, it must be real. It's got to be real because it's come from the bank. You know, so I think that's important. And this is where I think the last part's important, is really understanding those industry challenges. This is not just looking at the challenge and going, hey, we think this is the answer. You're going to have to do a bit of research, because that's what we're looking for too. We're looking to see that you've actually had a bit of insight to see some of the things that are a real problem and why they're a problem, and how can we actually get a funny storytelling, emotional response. We want to see those videos up on billboards and the posters up on billboards and so forth. And I guess the other thing is too, that we do want to actually sort of turn this into a bit of a roving art gallery, really, of roving movies that can go from university to be also university to university, but also to be in the foyers of buildings, and you know, it might be the National Cybersecurity Centre, or you know, wherever it may be. But we won't make this a roving sort of art gallery. So your work's going to be portrayed everywhere. So I think there's some of the important tips that are there.
When we will do our best to promote it as much as possible. And I think to remember is if we uncover some amazing stars that do something fantastic, the world is the oyster, because who knows who's going to pick it up, because we'll push it, KnowBe4 will see it. If it's amazing, we will take it further. So you have to trust us on that one. So this could be the opening of a phenomenal career and a brilliant start to your kind of your life out there. And I think to your point, Lisa, that we're all the problem being that we're still falling for phishing attacks all the time. It's the biggest way in for hackers. And you know, we have to look at things from a totally refreshing point of view, which is why we want to do this challenge, because we're hoping that there are going to be some fabulous students coming up with, you know, lovely new ideas that we haven't thought of. It's all hands to the pump in this world, because we're kind of we're actually up against losing a bit of a battle here. So I think that's the reason for this. You know, we're trying to uncover these kind of rough diamonds, aren't we? And hoping that out there we're going to discover some fantastic stars.
And that's exactly, absolutely. We want some stars to evolve out of this. I think when you think about it, Yvonne, a lot of us lose our ability to be creative once we sort of get out of kindergarten. It's sort of beaten into us that we've got to have a certain formula, and we've got to have a checklist and what have you. And we're missing the message. We want that gone. We want you to go back and pretend you're, young kids again. Imagination.
Anything. We want to see something totally turned on its head. That's why I'm so excited about this competition. Did you want to say something? Were you going to say something, Alison? I saw you there.
Yes, thank you. So we've talked about interdisciplinary teams, and of course, if you're working in one subject area, you may not know anybody on a different course in a different school or faculty. So we would encourage everyone to harness the contacts that you do have access to in your institution. So that will include lecturers. University Careers Services are very good in knowing kind of who's who across the university, and they're outward focused bodies anyway, and I would expect them to be very supportive of this kind of activity. So start to kind of reach out to the network that's accessible to you within the university, and ask for help, and find those other disciplines that can help you create a really complementary interdisciplinary team.
Brilliant. Okay. Next slide, please, Beth. cybersecurity and its impact on organizations. Who's going to take us through this one? Is this you, Javad?
I'll take you through this one. Yes, I can. And then anyone else can feel free to jump in with any gaps I leave. So we've spoken a lot about the some of the aspects around the cybersecurity industry today. Phishing or social engineering at large is primarily one of the actually, I won't even say it. I mean, I think this is for you to go out and find out. I think it's a really, really interesting research point as well. If you go out and there's so many freely available reports out there, threat intelligence reports. If you look for threat intelligence, there's all these vendors out there and all these investigative sort of like independent researchers out there. And they'll say like, oh, these are these attack groups and here's what they do. And this is what they're after. It's you can form your own opinions from that, but from a lot of what we see, the organizations have developed a huge dependency on their digital systems now, the cyber realm, what have you. So I mean, and this is something I've seen, like when I started off like 20 years ago, sometimes a database would go down and someone would nudge you on a Wednesday and say, hey, that database has went down on a Friday. Like, oh, okay, let's reboot it. Let's set it up again. Today, you can't have a system down for more than a few minutes before someone's jumping up and down. We are entirely dependent on these. So the impact on individuals and organizations is so great. Whenever there's any form of outage, whenever data is leaked, whenever data is corrupted, whenever the systems become unavailable, and this is a huge problem. And one thing I often say to people, like when I think, okay, they understand it from a business point of view, but they're like, well, what do I have to worry about myself? I have my phone and everything's backed up in the cloud. Our digital footprint extends far beyond just our phone. And one thing to do as a thought exercise probably is just within your own house, think about how many IP connected how many devices have an IP address, basically, how many things connect to the internet through one form or another, whether it's your phone or your TV or your kettle or whatever you have. And then also the second thing is like, how much storage do you have within your house? And you start adding it up. You're like, well, your phone has some storage, your laptop, your tablet, your games console, you have some removable media lying around. And quickly, if you start to actually go through this exercise, you see how big a challenge this is. And now when you think about this for organizations like small, medium enterprises, it's just crazy. And then when you look at large enterprises, it's a miracle sometimes that they even have a vague idea as to, I think the only way they know how much, the closest estimate that a lot of those organizations have is they look at their receipts and how much they're paying. So we've bought 100,000 laptops over the last 3 years. So probably we've got 100,000 machines. That's kind of like how a lot of these operate. Anyway, those are some of the operational challenges, but hopefully it's given you something to think about, in that this is why the impact is so large on everyone. We've heard like throughout the years, even at home, like these internet connected devices like baby monitors have been with notoriously poor passwords or default passwords. They're taken over, and then some people, they're like yelling at kids or what have you, or some of those video enabled doorbells, they've been breached either. And again, it's unsure whether it's because people reusing the same passwords or whether there's some unpatched vulnerability in there. But people getting access to it and shouting insults at people at the door. So okay, it's not like a financial crime, but it's really unpleasant. And these sorts of things impact people more and more every day. And this is why I think the education side and the awareness side is so important. We've made it so easy for people to bring all this technology into their lives at home, into their workplaces, yet they aren't fully aware of the challenges, because people just want something simple. If you've bought a webcam, for example, or a CCTV, you just want to plug it in and be able to access it. You don't want the hassle of like configuring stuff or connecting to it in a weird way. So, how do you raise the issue with them that, hey, the default password, you need to change it. It's not a good idea. That, if there's a patch available, here's how you download and update the firmware on it or the software on it. All of these things are super critical and super important. Otherwise, the value they provide in protecting your homes or your businesses becomes, negligible. And, we can say, like, I often think of it, compare it to driving on the road. Most of us have been passengers in vehicles for a long, long time, but it's a very different story when you start to learn. I have kids at the age where they're starting to take driving lessons, and I'm sure many of you are probably at that age or just recently done that, where you could have driven or been a passenger for your whole life, 18 years up until that point. But as soon as you're behind the wheel, the road seems like a very different place. It's a very dangerous place. Your mind's racing in a million different directions, and this is why we not only give new drivers training, but then even once you're a trained driver, there's constant reinforcement on the roads. There's road markings, there's signs, there's everything, just to constantly remind you, like, hey, slow down or stay on this side of the road or what have you. So this is why, we're thinking of something that's, engaging, it's to the point, and it can be used repeatedly to really help drill that into people. And as Lisa's also said, this is why we're trying to leverage the University Challenge, like, the tools and methods that we've used so far as an industry have gotten us so far, but this problem is way, way beyond, I think, what organizations or individuals the techniques that they've used have been successful so far. So we're looking for these new innovative ideas that can really bring more ideas and more engaging ways and unique approaches to this, so that we can explain stuff in a far better way. Next slide, maybe. That was more of a question than a thing. So yeah, so the Cybersecurity Awareness Month themes, there are 4, and we've spoken. But 1 and 2 you can almost join together because they rely around passwords and authentication. And this is a key thing, like, people reusing the same password, people using a poor password, like a weak, easily guessable password. These are some of the real common ways that criminals can break in. I'd encourage you to research multi-factor authentication. So just a quick thing, like authentication, you authenticate yourself by something something you have, or something you are. So something is like a password or a PIN. Something you have is something like a USB, one of those authenticator keys or something, and something you are is a biometric, like a fingerprint or something. And so when you use more than one of those, it becomes multi-factor. There are many different ways that people define this. So I'd encourage you to go out and look at it. So, sometimes you log onto a website and they say, we send you a text message to your phone. Is that multi-factor? Sometimes they'll say, like, put in an ID and password and use your face. Okay, sometimes it's only use your fingerprint. So there's lots of different ways to go about it. And there's this trade-off between convenience and security in many times. Like, people always want to be, what's the most convenient way that I can get this job done? So look into it, see what these options are. What are the different factors? How do we how do we encourage people to inconvenience themselves a little bit more to get better security, if that is a way? How do you make that something that's attractive? It's a bit like going to the gym. I don't like to go to the gym. I don't like getting tired and sweaty. But then when I'm presented with the physique of The Rock and say, well, you could turn out to look like him, I would be like, okay, I will go to the gym. And clearly it hasn't worked, but that's a good motivator. So sometimes it's not like we don't want to always scare people. We want to pull people. So again, think about how you motivate people into that direction. Using strong passwords, password managers, whether it be a software password manager, whether it be your browser, whether it be writing it down in a notebook. These are all password managers. These are ways to manage your passwords, because we cannot possibly remember the hundreds of passwords that are for every site that we need to. So we need to find a way of managing them. How do we get that message across? How do we get people to adopt that as a behavior? It's a bit like the green cross code we were taught as a child when we're crossing the road. It's like, stop, look, listen, cross. It's a framework that we build up in people's minds so that whichever road they reach at later in life, they have a framework to follow to allow them to cross safely. And that's one thing I think it's important to bear in mind as well. We're not just here to be prescriptive and say your password has to be this many characters and this many special characters and do this, but rather we want to help them build a framework to say, well, this is what good authentication looks like, and these are things you can do to do that, so that as the technology changes in the future, as maybe passwordless technologies become more prevalent or what have you, people still have that framework in their mind as like, well, these are some of the steps I need to do to remain secure. Updating software is another one. Again, on the phone or whatever it's normally pretty easy, or on your laptop or desktop. That it'll bug you. It'll say like, hey, new update is available. Do it now. Do it now. Are you ready? I can snooze it for 3 hours, but then I'm going to bug you again. But then there's other devices and systems out there that you actually have to go out and check yourself. And sometimes those are the ones that, especially large organizations, when they have so many devices out there, they don't know what needs patching or updating and when. And the final point, I think, is probably one of the most important behaviors that I think that we need to instill in people, is that our job as cybersecurity professionals the job isn't to make everyone a security professional. That's unrealistic. What we want them to do is to just have a sixth sense, or that radar built in to say, something doesn't feel right. Let me pass it on to someone that knows better. So unlike Lisa's mum, we don't want them to start opening the email and start investigating it and thinking it's dodgy and then forwarding it to Lisa, but rather, forward it directly to or call someone over, or have a mechanism in place to report that to someone. So if it's in your organization, sometimes there are tools available. You can, or there's a ticket process available. You can raise a ticket with IT and say, hey, I've got this email, please check it out. I'm not touching it. And then they can use their tools and forensic investigative methods to figure out whether that's malicious or not, and say thank you for reporting it. So it's just like if you see a suspicious bag at the airport or unattended, your job isn't there to go and unzip it and start cutting wires. Your job is simply to stay back and then call someone and say, this is a suspicious package. And that's the behavior we want to build in. So whether that be phishing, whether that be a stranger in the office, whether that be someone asking for your password in exchange for a chocolate bar, or whatever it might be, we want to build that framework into people. So those are kind of like some of the themes and what we're hoping to get out of them in terms of key messages. So that was that. I'll let any of my learned colleagues jump in with any further points I might have left.
I think you summed it up beautifully, actually. We've got our Q&As now. I think that's hopefully we've given everybody a really good kind of overview of what we're hoping for. Question time. Unless anyone has got anything else to say. Anyone got any good questions to ask us? I have one question here. Do you have any advice on how we can reach out to work with industry professionals as part of this project? Thank you, Nicole.
Great question. Yeah, it is a good question. I think, first of all of the judges here I know are open to, you can contact us and we can refer you through to, if we're not the right people to connect to with organisations and with networks and with groups and associations who can support you and help you, and even with companies that have got great people working for them as well. So I think we're probably a good connection to start with, and we can put you in touch with as many people as we can to support you. And I think that's actually one of the big features about this too, that it's not very often you actually get direct access to all the people that are sitting here on this call. So, we're really laying ourselves bare in many ways to say, like, we really want to help as many students as we can get a foot up in this industry and to get connected with people in this industry. So I think we're the first point of call, and that's a huge value to any of the students out there, a huge leverage and foot up. Because normally if you emailed us and tried to connect with us on LinkedIn, we're not likely to say yes, probably. So, I think in many ways that's a huge advantage to get first-hand, discussion. Well, let's face it, with Professor Danny, for example, I mean, heaven forbid.
But that actually, that's a really good point, Lisa. Not only giving people a leg up, but I think students ought to have the confidence. Get onto LinkedIn. If you're interested in a particular area, you want to address a particular kind of industry, or you've seen people, or you've heard about people, or just use the string of words that you're interested in, and write to them. You will find that the people who are worthwhile engaging with will reply. The people who just ignore you, like professors, they're not the people who you want to engage with. But you will find people who are just waiting for, and this could be the connection that leads to goodness knows what kind of collaboration, even new jobs. So don't be afraid of trying one connection, trying a few, and if you don't hear anything in a few days, try again. But I found that very, very effective from LinkedIn. This is why I tell my students, people have been public enough to make their profiles out there. Of course, there are going to be plenty of bad people are going to try and connect with them. So it'd be rather nice if good people like the students would get in contact with them in the first place.
I'd just like to add, because as security people, we are always on the lookout for those who would do us harm, perhaps. So it's really important to have as transparent as possible a profile. You can use the top section to say a little bit about who you are, what you're studying, what modules you've been taking, perhaps members of staff that you work with, perhaps a dissertation supervisor or somebody. Then there's people that can check you out if they have any anxieties, and perhaps contact those members of staff who could speak on your behalf. Yeah, I think it's really important to be transparent and have a really good LinkedIn profile, and especially as people are thinking into future careers as well. This could be a good push to just sharpen up the online CV and draw on the support of career services and lecturers to just help you sharpen that up, and then that's a great gateway to start to network with professionals.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to that too, don't forget that this competition is not just about cybersecurity professionals. So this is about engaging with industry, and most of us have networks into industry as well. So I think that's important. So if you want to sort of have direct contacts with maybe some businesses that we think might be trusted, or great businesses to go and have a chat with, or sectors to go and have a chat with, or how to get in contact with an industry association, for example. It might be a small business council, or it might be a local area partnership or something like that. That would be a good approach too. So just be mindful that this is not about regurgitating what the cybersecurity industry wants to hear and wants to say. We want a fresh message. So again, that's also where we would come in, as a value add in the conversation as well. And I can see also, Yvonne, there's another really good question in there. How can participants, of course, get some more information about the challenge as well? So I might hand that over to you to tell the details for that. Except that you're on mute.
So if there aren't any more questions, that's perfect. We can you can go to the website, which is securityseries.com, and then it's under the KnowBe4 challenge, or KnowBe4 Challenge. But you can also email us at kb4challenge@gmail.com. That's kb4challenge@gmail.com. So you definitely should email us, and we're all here. You know, you can find all of us out on LinkedIn. Suss us out, find us. We've all been in your position, by the way. All of us were where you were many years ago. So, and I'm always a big one, like you say, Danny, on LinkedIn. I do everything on LinkedIn, and I connect with all sorts of people. So definitely take Danny's advice and do that. So please be as creative as you want to be. Surprise us, delight us. We're all ears. And we want you guys to succeed. We're really looking for some fantastic entries there. So give it a go. It's a challenge. Just challenge yourselves. And if you need to talk to any of us, please do. And good luck from me.
Yes, good luck, everyone.
Let's be creative out there.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. All right, everyone, have a good day.
Be seeing you.
Bye.